Alright, hello everyone, it's Luke from Snaprat Games, and I'm coming in today with a deck list of one of my own personal decks. This is Lord of Mycelium. It is an Abzan deck led by Ghave, Guru of Spores. Focuses around Aristocrat Sacrifice, certain gain and drain infinite combos. There are a lot of different infinite combos for the most value, and it's generally value focused, meaning that it wins the game through these card combos and through just generally amassing a large board state instead of, swinging in for a bunch of damage and being really aggro early on. So let's get right into it with our first topic, which is Fungal Pyre. So these are what we're sacrificing our creatures to. First on the list, we have Dockside Chef. This is an enchantment creature. We can sack an artifact or creature, draw a card for 2 mana. Pretty good value. We're drawing cards going through our deck. Obviously a little bit more expensive than we'd like. Ravenous Amulet, we have this artifact here with a similar ability. We can sack a creature, draw a card, and put a soul counter on it. And then later on, we can sack it and deal damage, or have our opponents lose life equal to the number of soul counters on it. So a little bit of late game life loss if we get to that point. Bartolome del Presidio, this is a legendary creature with free sack outlet, putting +1/+1 counters on him. Works very, very well with Ghave by putting +1/+1 counters on him and also sacrificing creatures in the process. Phyrexian Ghoul is our last sack outlet here. It's another free sack outlet giving +2/+2 until the end of the turn, which can actually end up dealing a significant chunk of damage in the late game. So what are we sacrificing to these cards? This is number 2, Enhanced Fodder. Cards like Insidious Fungus and Cathar Commando both have built-in sacrifice outlets, where basically they can sacrifice themselves, destroy an artifact or enchantment, or in the case of Insidious Fungus, you can actually draw a card and put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. Wary Thespian and Wary Watchdog have the same ability, where when they enter or die, you get to surveil 1, getting some more card advantage and, looking through the top cards of your library. This deck also runs a lot of recursion because it's based around sacrifice, and so putting cards into your bin is not that much of a deterring factor. Living Phone allows us to look through the top 5 cards of our library and put a creature with power 2 or less into our hand when it dies, so that's a great death trigger, especially giving us some more card advantage and looking through more cards. Enduring Innocence comes back as an enchantment when it dies, and it allows you to draw cards whenever you create a 1/1 or a creature with power 2 or less. So again, digging through our deck, trying to find other combo pieces, and a great sacrifice fodder because when it dies, it comes back as an even more difficult to remove card type. Cauldron Familiar here has an enter the battlefield gain and drain effect, and then you can sacrifice a food to bring it right back to the battlefield. It's part of one of the infinite combos in the deck, and I'll be linking all those infinite combos in the description below. Wormcoil Larva, a great blocker, a great life gain generator, and then also the fact that it's actually 3 different creatures effectively in one creature, because when it dies it creates its 2 halves, makes it a better creature in the deck for sacrificing, because then it gives you those creatures to then sacrifice again on a later turn. Sarth the Viper's Fang, this is another legendary creature. It's green human warlock. Tap creatures you control have Death Touch, untap creatures you control have Hexproof, and you can pay 1 and tap it to untap another target creature or land. So that additional layer of protection is very, very important in this deck because it allows you to basically just counteract any removal except for those that people might have, such as a counter spell. So again, great card in this deck. Make sure that all your combos can stay online and stay around for longer. Rip Spawn Hunter has this survival trigger, which is a Duskmourn mechanic, where basically second main phase, if he's tapped, you get to do the effect, which in this case is reveal the top X cards of your library, where X is his power, put any number of different powered creatures or vehicles into your hand and the rest of the bottom. So with all those +1/+1 counters that we can get from our commander Ghave and put on other creatures, we can actually end up digging through a lot of our deck with this and finding some really high power creatures and combo pieces. Propagator Drone, this is a 2/2 from Modern Horizons 3. Creature tokens you control have Evolve. I consider this as kind of like a plan B in the deck. If we can't win through some of our combos, but we have a lot of saplings lying around, we can end up playing some other creatures that are bigger, pumping them up by a lot, and then swinging through for a significant portion of our opponent's life totals. And then last but not least, we have Patchwork Beastie. This is just a 1-cost 3/3. It's a great sacrifice outlet. It cannot attack or block unless you have Delirium, but the main reason we have it in the deck is that at the beginning of your upkeep, you can mill a card. With the amount of recursion in the deck, milling a card and putting that into our graveyard actually acts as almost like a second draw, because we end up being able to recur those later on in the game, and so it's not as much of an issue putting them into the graveyard. Number 3 is trigger happy. So what are going to be seeing all these death triggers? Well, we have cards like Elas Ilkor, Slimefoot the Stowaway, and Popular Egoist, and Marionette Apprentice, all of which do a similar effect of when creatures enter. Well, in Elas Ilkor's case, when creatures enter, you gain a life, and when they die, each opponent loses 1 life. And then the rest of them have similar effects of whenever a creature dies or is sacrificed, you get to kind of gain and drain your opponents, gaining you some more life and taking away theirs. In the case of Elas Ilkor, Slimefoot, Popular Egoist, and Marionette Apprentice, they are all each opponent, so they effectively target everyone while you gain life at the same time. Flesh Taker has a similar ability, but only gaining life for you. Whenever you sacrifice a creature, you get to gain a life, scry 1. And then he also has a built-in sacrifice outlet for 1. The fact that you're allowing, you're gaining life, building up kind of that wall of your life total against maybe other aggro decks, and then also scrying 1, so looking through your deck further and finding some of those combo pieces or cards that help out your game plan is very important. And especially in a turn where you might be sacking a lot of creatures, you can use this to kind of churn through your deck and make sure you're only drawing what you want to draw. We have probably the all-star of the deck here. This is Pitiless Plunderer. Whenever another creature you control dies, create a treasure token. So this gets pretty much all of our combos going because it adds mana into that situation and allows us to continue kind of going through these loops of sacrificing creatures, creating creatures, and getting value in different ways. Pitiless Plunderer is definitely the key card in the deck to unlocking all those combos. Of course, there are combos that you could do without it, but still, this is what really gets the majority of them going. Peregrine Took, this is allows us to create foods as we go along. So whenever we create tokens, we create an additional food token with those tokens, and then sacrifice 3 foods, draw a card. That might not come up a lot, but again, additional card draw in the deck is never a bad thing, and helps you to just look through your deck for cards that you really want to draw. Necrosynthesis, this puts +1/+1 counters onto the enchanted creature whenever another creature dies, and then when that creature, the enchanted creature, dies, you get to look at the top X cards, where X is its power, put 1 into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library. Again, card advantage is very important in this deck. We're trying to find these combo pieces, so the death trigger is not a bad thing, but then this is also part of a number of different, of one of the infinite combos in the deck, because of the fact that whenever a creature dies, you put a +1/+1 counter on it, which can then set online cards like Ghave. Similarly, we have Ivyland Denizen. All of the saplings that we're creating are green, so this will trigger for all the saplings, and it's whenever another green creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. This effectively removes the cost that our commander has of removing a counter, and it just puts it down to pay 1, create a sapling, because of the fact that whenever we play that sapling, we're then getting to put the +1/+1 counter back onto something. Evolution Witness is a great target to put those +1/+1 counters on, because whenever you put a +1/+1 counter on it, you get to return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. This is probably the best recursion card in the deck just because of how repeatable and how much value we can get from this. If we have some of those high mana combination combos in the deck online, or we're able to just, churn through our library and find other, milling a lot of cards or civilian cards to our bin, this can bring all of those back and start kind of looping creatures on its own. And last but not least, we have Basking Broodscale. This combos with Necrosynthesis, creating you infinite colorless mana, and it has, if you put +1/+1 counters on it, you get a 0/1 colorless Eldrazi creature spawn token. So whenever you put a +1/+1 counter, get a spawn, which then sacks immediately for a generic mana or a blank mana. So again, with Necrosynthesis, this creates infinite blank mana, which can be used to many different effects throughout the deck. Our fourth topic here is growing forces. So we want to have the maximum amount of value out on the battlefield, and therefore we need to have the maximum amount of mana available to us. So cards like Entis Restoration and Rampant Growth and Flare of Cultivation all allow us to ramp for more lands onto the battlefield. Entis Restoration for 3 lands, of basic land type if you have a creature with power 4 or greater, which is generally pretty easy to do, especially with a +1/+1 counter commander. Rampant Growth just puts a basic land from our library onto the battlefield tapped. And then Flare of Cultivation has the same exact ability as Cultivate, but just allows you to sacrifice a non-token green creature rather than paying the spell's mana cost. So again, allows us to focus more on that sacrifice synergy while still getting lands onto the battlefield and ramping ourselves. Soul Ring, it's 1 for then an artifact that taps for 2. Of course, commander staple, everybody knows it. Comedy of Whispered Hopes, this is actually one of my favorite cards, if not my favorite card in the entire deck. It has a Hardened Scales effect on it, so whenever you put one or more +1/+1 counters on a permanent, you put that many +1. And then you can tap it to add X mana of any one color, where X is Comedy of Whispered Hopes power. So if you target this with your commander 5 times, you're getting 10 +1/+1 counters onto it because of Comedy of Whispered Hopes +1 and +1/+1 counter ability, and then taps for 11. So very, very good card. Great ramp piece in the deck. Our 5th topic is library inoculation. So as I said, it's very important that we're looking through our deck for certain cards, and these are the ways that we help to look for them. Eviscerator's Insight, sack a creature to draw 2 cards, and it has flashback. Foreboding Fruit, draw 2 cards, lose 2 life. You're probably not going to get that food token because it's rare that you'd be tapping 3 black mana to do this, just mana efficiency wise. But if you do, that's never a bad thing. Idol of Oblivion, we're almost guaranteed going to be creating tokens pretty much every turn, and so this extra draw every turn is very, very powerful and can be very helpful in looking through our deck for more cards. And then also pay 8, tap, sacrifice it, create a 10/10. In the late game, if you can create that 10/10 and then start swinging in on your opponents, the damage will add up and make it easier for you to kill your opponents with gain and drain type effects. Rite of Harmony allows us to draw a card whenever a creature enters for a turn. It's an instant card, and then it also has flashback. This is a great card in the deck for the amount of, value that it can add to certain big turns. If you already know that you're going to have a big turn where you are creating a bunch of tokens and a bunch of creatures entering the battlefield, this is great to just, refill your hand as you go along and give you a lot of card advantage in the game. Ajani Unyielding, its +2 ability allows you to reveal the top 3 cards of your library, put all non-land permanents into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library. Its -2 ability is a Swords to Plowshares effect, which is repeatable and therefore very, very powerful in this deck. And its ultimate puts 5 +1/+1 counters on each creature you control, and 5 loyalty counters on each other planeswalker you control. There are no other planeswalkers in the deck, but the 5 +1/+1 counters on each creature can be very, very powerful and game-ending if you get to that ultimate. Seek the Wilds looks at the top 4 cards of our library, and we can put a creature or land into our hand, the rest on the bottom. Similarly, Warm Welcome looks at the top 5 cards of our library. We can put a creature into our hand, and then the rest on the bottom, and then create a 1/1 green-white citizen creature token. So it comes with another sacrifice fodder there. In Search of Greatness, we're generally not getting that first ability where we put a permanent spell with converted mana cost 1 plus the highest converted mana cost among other permanents we control without paying its mana cost. We're generally not going to be getting that ability just because it's a pretty niche thing. But the fact that we can just scry 1 at our upkeep on every turn is still very, very powerful and can still advance our game plan and our board state quite a bit. The Hunger Tide Rises is a saga where its first 3 chapters create 1/1s, and then its 4th chapter allows you to sacrifice any number of creatures, search your library and graveyard for a creature with converted mana cost equal to or less than the number of creatures you sacrificed, and put it directly onto the battlefield. So effectively a creature tutor to the battlefield, and we're going to have plenty of sacrifice fodder, so it will not be that much of a price. Threats Undetected allows you to search your library for 4 creature cards with different powers. An opponent chooses 2 of them that you shuffle back into your library, and you get the other 2 into your hand. If we kind of organize this correctly, we can force our opponents to choose the cards that we want just by making them have to choose those cards in comparison to other more powerful cards. Buried Alive tutors up 3 cards directly into our graveyard, so searches our library for 3 creature cards and puts them into the graveyard. And then last but not least, we have Demonic Council. This card cares about Delirium. because it allows you to search your library for demon card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle. However, if we have Delirium, it is just a demonic tutor, where we search our library for any card, put it into our hand without revealing, and then shuffle. So, Delirium is not difficult to get in this deck, especially with the artifact and enchantment creatures that we have. So, the fact that it just allows you to demonic tutor is very, very powerful. Number 6, we have Back from the Brink. So these are all of our recursion, our ways to get our creatures back once killing them or once milling them. Karmic Guide returns a creature directly from the graveyard to the battlefield. It has an echo cost, but again, that's not going to matter too much. Once we have that creature on the battlefield, that's probably what we've been going for, and Karmic Guide will not be that imperative to our game plan. Graceful Restoration allows us to either return one creature to the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter, or 2 creatures with power 2 or less from our graveyard to the battlefield. The general power and toughness of this deck is below 4/4, and so we're probably going to be going for that second ability almost all times, which is very, very powerful, bringing 2 creatures back immediately to the battlefield. Macabre Waltz for 2 mana brings 2 creatures from our graveyard to our hand, and then we have to discard a card. Again, with recursion, similar to this, we can basically choose, okay, this card in my hand is not as good as the other 2 in my graveyard, let's just exchange them. So it gives you a little bit more of a versatility there, and allows you to return some of those important creatures that might have been removed. Parination returns a creature card or permanent card from our graveyard to the battlefield with a hexproof and an indestructible counter on it. Very, very powerful effect. Obviously, it's an expensive card, but returning something with basically invincibility now, unless board wipes are played at that point in the game, is very, very powerful and can return some of those important combo pieces and make sure that they don't get removed again. And then lastly, we have Wildest Dreams. This is an XX green for a sorcery. Return X target cards from our graveyard to our hand, and then exile Wildest Dreams. Very, very powerful card just because of the fact that it can return instants and sorceries and artifacts and any of those other types, as opposed to just creatures or permanents from our graveyard to our hand. So we can get back our recursion spells along with some of our other creatures that we might need. And then last but not least, the last section I have is number 7, Utility. So just some certain cards that are, generally needed in this deck and help the game plan progress, but are not really, sorted into any of those other topics that I've talked about early on. Number 1 is Hardened Scales. Same as with Call Me Whispered Hopes, the same ability. If 1 or more ++ counters would be put on a creature you control, that many +1 are put on it instead. And for 1 green mana, that's something we can get out very, very early on. Murder, again, a very, very good card here. Destroy target creature for only 1 and 2 black, and it's an instant speed. Withering Torment, similarly, is 2 and 1 black for an instant. Destroy target creature or enchantment. You lose 2 life. In, of course, our 40 life format, we don't really care that much about losing 2 life, and being able to take out a very powerful creature or a very powerful enchantment on our opponent's board is well worth it. Wither and Bloom fits perfectly into the general game plan of the deck. You can pay 2, give a creature -3/-3, and then from your graveyard, exile this for 2, and put a ++ counter onto a creature you control. Lethal Throwdown, you have to sacrifice a creature or a modified creature to destroy a creature on an opponent's board, and then if it was a modified creature, like say a creature with a ++ counter on it, you get to draw a card for your troubles. So especially effective there at giving you a little bit more value, just giving you a little bit of an edge in that regard. Charitable Levy taxes all non-creature spells by 1 more to cast, and then once people have played 3, you get to sacrifice it, draw a card, and search a library for planes, put it onto the battlefield, tapped, then shuffle. So ramping you, giving you more card advantage, and all the while taxing your opponents while you're generally unaffected. Stormplane Detainment is a great way to deal with something that has indestructible or some other way that's stopping it from dying. You can exile it instead until Stormplane Detainment leaves the battlefield. Similarly, Candle Trap, for 1 white mana, you can give a creature Defender and prevent all combat damage that would be dealt by it. And then later on in the game, if you have 3 or more creatures with different powers, you can pay 2 and a white and sacrifice it to just exile that creature altogether. Damning Verdict is a great board wipe in the deck, especially with the amount of plus and plus encounters we're throwing around. So unless we're playing against another plus and plus encounter deck, pretty much just a one-sided board wipe for our opponents. White Sun's Twilight gives us life gain for X, creating X 1/1 for executed mites with Toxic 1. And then also, if X is 5 or more, it's a board wipe, destroy all other creatures. If we pay enough mana into this, we can end up just taking out our opponents on the following turn when those 1/1 mites have hate or have no longer summoning sickness, because 10 poison counters is a game loss for our opponents. And then last but not least, I have Shifting Woodland in here. This is a land that taps for green. It enters the battlefield tapped unless you control forest, but then it has a Delirium ability where you can pay 2 and 2 green and make it into a copy of target permanent card in your graveyard until end of turn. Land destruction is even more hard to come by than enchantment or artifact destruction, and so being able to turn this into one of your combo pieces in the graveyard is very, very powerful, especially because it's a difficult card type to remove and allows you to, leave that thing in the bin for other recursion later on, for instance, but still have it on the battlefield in the form of Shifting Woodland. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you would like to check out the deck list, I will leave the link in the description. I'm also going to leave the link to all of the infinite combos in this deck also in the description. If you enjoyed, please like, share, subscribe, become a member of this channel if you enjoyed, and then check out some other videos if you're interested. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.